Hello again. Thank you so much for joining me today and clicking on this video. Today, we're picking up where we left off in the last video and we're talking about drawing facial features. But today, it's all about the female face. As with all forms of art, design style plays a major factor in how we depict a character's face and overall look. Using a more cartoony style can be more forgiving in terms of accuracy and detail, but I've always found that learning the traditional facial structure and rules is enormously beneficial to creating a more stylized and simplistic look. In other words, learning the rules is a great way to learn how to break them properly. So to begin looking at female facial features, let's start with a basic front view head. A traditional Andrew Loomis style female head. As always, we'll start with a circle and divide it down the center, horizontally and vertically. The horizontal line being our brow line, we'll add the eyes just below that. Here, let's look at the eye shape a little closer and see how I like to set it up. For me, the female eye tends to be flatter on top and a little more rounded on the bottom. And depending on the expression, the top of the eyeball is always hidden by the top of the eyelid and those thick lashes. And speaking of lashes, try to always keep them as a thick outlining shape around the eye. Never consider doing the individual eyelash hairs. It just doesn't look right. Now let's get back to that full face and look at the other features. The bottom of her nose should rest right at the base of the circle, right in the center. Let's take a closer look at drawing that front view of the nose. The nose, like all things, has a specific shape. The top connects to the brows, and the bridge of the nose tends to be rounded. The very tip and the nostrils are also rounded, and they create a shape like this. This shape always makes me think of Batman. Just looks like his bat signal. Is it just me? Obviously, we're not going to leave it like this, but it is a good reminder of how the tip of the nose will look in a front view, and then we'll add some shading and detail. The nostrils hide beneath the nose on the bottom side, and they're often in shadow. We don't really see much of them, but we'll still see a small sliver of the nostril opening. But because of the shape of the nose, it's often defined more by shadow than by just drawing or lines. So keep one side of the nose darkened and in shadow, as well as the underside of the nose. Continuing with the face, let's bring this jawline down and start working on her mouth and lips. The mouth usually rests about halfway between the bottom of the nose and the chin. So we'll add a horizontal line here to indicate where the mouth lies. We'll fill in the upper and lower lips, and the corners of the mouth and her lips should line up to the center of her eyes if we draw vertical lines. The ears should fit right between the brow line and the nose line. Now, before I clean up this front view face, let's have a closer look at the mouth and the lips and how they are shaped and how I like to draw them. One thing I tend to do is I make the upper lip a little bit longer than the lower lip, although the lower lip should be a little bigger and fuller than the upper. Shadow and lighting will always play a factor when drawing female lips, as the upper lip tends to be in shadow most of the time, especially when the light is coming from above. Now here, let's try another version of the lips, but with a slightly more natural and smaller upper lip. But again, that upper lip is going to be in shadow because most light sources tend to come from above. And therefore, it should cast a slight shadow underneath the lower lip as well. Here's a quick look at the same mouth style in a 3/4 front view. Even in this quick sketch, a little shading on that upper lip really helps to sell the overall shape of the lips. And if we open that 3/4 front mouth, we'll notice that the lips change shape and stretch around the opening of the mouth. And of course, the jaw hinges just below the ears, So we're going to see a lot more lower teeth and tongue than we are the upper teeth. And when it comes to drawing the teeth in the mouth, there's no need to draw every individual tooth shape. A simple indication of the teeth is probably best. Now let's give our attractive front view female face here a quick cleanup and see what we've got. Okay, I think that works. Obviously she needs some hair, but we'll get to that later. Her eyes are a little asymmetrical, but I think that's okay for this quick front view tutorial. Next, let's have a look at a 3/4 front view and see how that affects the facial features. As always, we're going to need a head, so let's start with a sketch of a 3/4 front. Again, Andrew Loomis style female head. Starting with the circle, the brow line wraps around the center of the circle, and the eye line is just below that. And the nose is going to rest right around the base of the bottom of that circle. And the mouth line should be about halfway between the nose and the chin line. We'll fill in some other rough details here, and then just give it a solid outline to get an understanding of the shape of this 3/4 front head. Notice that S curve along the cheek. That curved line is something that reoccurs in character design quite often, specifically with female characters. Let's look at that 3/4 front nose a little closer. Notice we're going to see a lot more of one side than the other. The nostrils should always be pointing slightly downwards toward the center of the nose. And we may not see any of the nostril on the far side of the nose, but the side facing us should look slightly like a small thin teardrop. I also like to add a thin line indicating the underside of the nose and the area that'll be mostly in shadow. Let's continue cleaning up that 3/4 front head and have a look at the 3/4 front mouth again and those lips. Again, the upper lip is slightly longer and the lower lip is more fuller. Notice I'm putting a center line right down the middle, because that helps me to understand when the lips are wrapped around the face like that, the far side should be barely visible and will mostly be in shadow. Now let's look at those 3/4 front eyes and continue cleaning up this 3/4 front head. Just like the lips and the nose, the part of the face on the far side is going to be affected by perspective and shadow. Therefore, the eye on the far side of the face is going to be shorter and slightly smaller because of the perspective of the face. Let's take a closer look at those eyes in this 3/4 front view. The eye closest to us, facing camera, is going to be fuller and slightly larger. In fact, it's quite similar to the eye of the front view face. And thick eyelash shapes, no individual lash hairs. Let's give this perspective eye a nice flat top and a rounded bottom. The basic flat line shape of this eye would look something like this. And the eye facing us would have more of a shape like this. Both eyes, though, slightly pointed downward toward the center. The eyebrows would also follow a similar downward sloping towards the center. Now, this is simply my way for drawing the eyes in a simple comic booky style, but there are endless ways for designing stylized or comic book art style faces and face features. So learn what you can from different styles and find something that works for you and develops into your own personal style. So I'll close this video out now because it's getting a little long, but I'll close with a quick look at the profile view of the female face and features, but it's very similar to what we covered in the last video regarding the male profile face. The upper lip is always going to be a little farther out than the lower lip, and you could almost draw a line from the tip of the nose down to the chin, and that will give you an idea of the placement of the nose, mouth, lips, and chin. So keep drawing, keep practicing, and obviously these poor girls really do need some hair. Unfortunately, I don't have time in this video, and we're going to cover that again in the next video. But don't worry, I'm getting back onto a more regular schedule, so look for that next video in about a week or so. All the best, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, please hit the like button, and check my community page on YouTube for updates and more information. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.